You've wandered into, by far, what is going to be the best session of the day. We're going to be talking about process mining on the server. Look at the energy. Last session of the day, and you guys are bringing the energy. I love it. So for those that I've not met before, my name is Dan Grady. I'm part of the process mining business unit here at ServiceNow, and I'm going to be walking you through our process mining solution here today. But of course, you've seen this slide probably 16 or 17 other times today, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but as you know, right, ServiceNow is the AI platform for government transformation, allowing us to put AI in the hands of everybody in every corner of your organization. And that's being powered by three key things that Chris did a great job explaining this morning: AI, data, and workflows. Key pieces of this, though, that I just want to call out that he might not have mentioned, right? The AI piece is important, right? We have that AI piece. The data piece is extremely important because that's what we use to actually educate all these little agents and minions that are running around the organization. And we're able to get not only data in ServiceNow to educate these folks, but also data outside of ServiceNow with our workflow data fabric. Then the workflow piece is even extra important. Most of the agents that you've been working with up until now, they're really good at kind of answering your questions, right? Chatting, right? They've got a mouth, really good at that. But the workflow piece is key because what that does, it gives our agents hands, legs. It can actually do work for you. That's a big piece, right? So the three of these things together, as you've heard already, give us a huge advantage as you start to deploy AI in your organizations, right? Much more actionable than some of the other agents that might be out there. What we're going to be talking about for the rest of the day is process mining. And I always love to start these sessions with this quote: do the best you can until you know better, and then when you know better, do better. And I like the quote, one, because it usually aligns to the reason that we all gathered here, right? Learn a little bit more about ServiceNow, take that knowledge, go back, apply it, get more value out of your investment in the platform. But it also aligns to process mining, which is designed to help us x-ray the workflows that we have running in our organizations and start to show us where and how we could be doing better for everyone involved. Now, what we're going to do here today, got a couple of slides up front to give you the why and what of process mining, so you know what it is, why it's important, why it might be different than some of the analytics you've already been doing on the platform. Then I've got one slide that just talks about how we use this and where it fits in terms of continuous improvement in optimizing processes on the platform. Then we'll dive into a live demonstration. I'll show you how somebody uses what is known as the process mining workspace to slice and dice your process data. Then, my favorite part of the show, is I'm going to actually show you how easy it is to get started. I usually like to joke that if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball, or if you can build a ServiceNow report, you can visualize your process in a matter of minutes. You already have the skills you need to get started with what you're about to see. So I love showing that. And then lastly, if we have time, there is hours and hours out there on the internet of other content focused on ServiceNow's process mining, so I'll point you at some of the key things so you don't get lost looking through all of it. That's the plan. Of course, I have to put this slide up here. This is the slide that says, hey, anything I say and do here today can't be held against me in the court of law. It is also the slide that says, hey, as part of this conversation, if we happen to make any forward-looking statements about things that might be coming on the platform, you should take them as such, make no decisions based on them whatsoever, because they're always subject to change. I'm assuming you've read the fine print. Perfect. So now with everything we do in life, whether it be a session like this, a business process, or even a park, when we plan or design things, we have a vision in our heads for how they should play out. And we design things, we design for both completeness and efficiency to provide the best experience possible for as many people as possible. So if we were designing a park, right, we'd probably put in some paths for people to walk, bike, rollerblade on, maybe some benches for people to sit on, read a book, share a story with a friend. Maybe put in some grassy areas for people to lay down a picnic blanket and have a lunch, or like my wife and I used to do when we lived in Manhattan, go play a game of Scrabble on a Saturday afternoon, where she kicked my butt week after week. So we designed to provide the best experience possible for as many people as possible. Now, unfortunately, what we design is not always what plays out in reality. The reality is not all the work is going to follow the optimal path, right? And while this new reality might be more efficient for the people trying to get from point A to point B, certainly doesn't have a positive impact on the game of Scrabble my wife and I are trying to play, right? Same thing is true with your business processes, designed for completeness and efficiency to provide that great experience. You roll them out and all heck breaks loose, right? And reality kicks in and not all the work takes the optimal path. And that has that negative impact, as I mentioned, on the experience that people are having with that service that you're trying to deliver. The challenge is, seeing the reality of your business processes, it ain't as easy and obvious as that park example I had up on the screen. For most organizations, continual improvement is a very manual, time-consuming, costly exercise involving running tons of reports. And then for some reason, some people still like to print those reports and go through them line by line with a highlighter. Don't know why they do it, but they like to do it. It may involve holding in-person or virtual workshops where you take a whole bunch of sticky notes and put them up on a wall, and then you've got that one person that's to snap a picture of those sticky notes on the wall and post it to some internal site because, like, hey, did work really happen unless we have pictures of sticky notes on a wall somewhere? It may involve bringing in some other people to help you, which super helpful folks, but they slow things down. And then after you get through all that, guess what? You still have to get internal alignment on the optimal path forward. And at the speed in which most organizations are trying to move these days, by the time you get through all that, the optimal path forward has already changed. And this is where process mining comes in. Process mining automates that process of showing us the reality, right? Showing us where things are ping-ponging between different teams, where there's rework loops in the process or quality issues, where things are getting stuck waiting for approval for ungodly amounts of time. And now that we have that accelerated visibility into the reality, that should speed up our ability to make the necessary adjustments to the process to drive more efficiency back into the organization. Now, some folks say, these slides build a little bit differently now. Some folks say, Dan, hold on a second. We've got all these amazing dashboards on the platform already that give us visibility into our processes. Like, how is this different? Well, those dashboards are great at helping us ask and answer very important questions like, how many tickets, cases, incidents, whatever it might do to work? Which types were they? How long did it take to close those things? And probably most importantly, are we hitting our targets and are we improving our cycle times? All super important questions that we hope you're using dashboards like this to ask and answer. But here's the deal. I've been doing this a little while, and one of the things I've learned is this. Information is one of the most addictive and contagious things out there. You give somebody a little bit and they always want more. So the first thing that happens when we roll a dashboard like this out the door, before we can high-five each other that we got it out the door, somebody in leadership starts asking questions like, why are we missing our ESAT and CSAT targets? Why are our closure times trending in those directions? Like, why? And the answers to those follow-up why questions, they don't live in dashboards like this. They live in process mining. Process mining allows us to start asking and answering all the follow-up why questions about the things we're seeing in our higher-level dashboards, like where is the process getting stuck? Where is there any sort of unnecessary rework? Which vendors are speeding us up and which ones are slowing us down? And my all-time personal favorite, I've been with ServiceNow for about 9 years, mostly working with customers in the analytics and AI space. And I think every customer I ever worked with has asked me for the same report. So much so that I've given it a name. I like to call it the finger-pointing report. Everybody wants to know who's holding onto the work the longest. I need to know who's holding onto the work the longest. Or if you're more glass half full, we call that the opportunity to improve report. These are all the types of questions that process mining allows us to start asking and answering. Essentially, we like to say that process mining gets us to the why behind our KPIs. And I can apply this process mining capability to a single table process like this incident example here, where I'm looking at how the incidents are moving from state to state in the process and the volume and velocity between those transitions. Or if you happen to be using us for a more robust workflow like HR onboarding, where you have a high-level lifecycle event, then you have a whole bunch of activity sets, some subcases and tasks that come off of that. We use something we call a multi-dimensional map to give you end-to-end visibility into that process. These multi-dimensional maps are fantastic for digging into your service catalogs. If you think about all the requests that you have coming through your service catalogs, there's two primary bottlenecks: the approval step and the fulfillment tasks. They live in two separate tables on the platform. So whereas a report might show you the overall fulfillment time, if you really want to understand where you're leaking air from your tires, this multi-dimensional approach allows you to see where the time's being spent, approvals or work itself. I had one customer recently, we looked at one requested item they have, and we narrowed it down to, let's just show me all the situations in which there's an approval taking longer than 2 days. There was 727 that matched that criteria, and there was 7 years worth of time packaged up in that approval step for those 727. The fulfillment tasks, 7 days. So 7 years worth of lost time waiting for approval for 7 days of actual work from a fulfillment standpoint. And the kicker, they were getting approved 99.9% of the time, right? Guess what? They chose to remove the approval. The process is now magically running a lot faster there. So lots of opportunity. And then, look, heaven forbid you're running a process outside of ServiceNow, but it does happen from now and then. Right, we do offer the ability to ingest external process data into the platform and start to show you the reality of those processes as well, maybe giving you some ideas on how to reimagine the process on the ServiceNow platform. This happens to be an example of some smart recruiters data for a hiring system that we're looking at here. Now, last slide, then we'll do a little bit of live demo stuff. It's kind of small on the screen, but I'll talk you through it. I always like to point this out because we believe we give our customers a significant advantage now that we have process mining on the platform from a continual improvement perspective. If you think about improving a process, there's really 4 phases: detect, analyze, improve, and monitor. We have pieces of the platform that help with each of those 4 phases. So from a detect standpoint, we have things that can send notifications, let's say maybe when an SLA will breach, or probably more appropriately, from a continual improvement perspective, we can send a notification if one of your key performance indicators is trending towards hitting one of the thresholds or targets that you've set for yourselves. Those are designed to let you know that things aren't going according to plan. But when that happens, what do you have to do? Well, you need to dig in, analyze, understand why that's happening, and how we could potentially improve. This is where process mining fits with those visualized process maps, bottleneck, root cause, variation analysis, which you'll see in the demonstration. These all help us understand where and how we potentially can improve. But here's the if a tree falls in the woods moment. Analytics is great. It's fantastic. Having this visibility is amazing. But if you don't act on what the data is telling you to do, you recognize no value from it. Imagine what Coach K said today. Think back to the accountability, the 3 A's, right? You need to actually act on what the data is telling you to do. The good news is there's no shortage of ways to improve processes on the ServiceNow platform. Let's say process mining shines a light on an intake challenge we have where we're going back and forth to the end user for additional information multiple times. Maybe we use an agent, a virtual agent, to improve that intake experience and eliminate some of the back and forth. Let's say we see a whole bunch of work that's bouncing between multiple teams before it gets to its final resting place. We can use predictive or task intelligence to help us get that work to the right place the first time. Very often we see people swivel chairing data from one system to another, and we can use the workflow data fabric, integration hub, or an RPA bot potentially to eliminate some of that swivel chairing that's going on. And this is where I always have to look up to make sure the ServiceNow gods, they might strike me down with lightning for saying this. Sometimes the answer is not an automation. It's just a human thing we should stop doing, like that approval step that I talked about, a process change, right? I had one customer that had 2 levels of approval on printer toner requests, and that second level of approval was adding 3 days to the closure time. Like, do we really need 2 levels of approval on printer toner requests? They thought not. Remove that step. Process magically runs 3 days faster now. And then the last piece is the monitor piece, and this is key. This is the accountability. When you start using process mining, there's going to be no shortage of opportunities to improve. Some bigger than others, some smaller than others. You're not going to be able to act on them all at once, but you want to make sure that they don't get lost, right? There are improvement opportunities. So there's applications on the platform like Continual Improvement Management and Automation Center that are designed to help us capture, track, and prioritize all these things and hold people accountable to actually doing the follow-up work so we recognize the value of the analysis that we did. All right, let's get to the demo piece. So I always like to start these demonstrations inside of a dashboard. You do not need to be using platform analytics to use process mining, but they are very complementary solutions like I talked about, and they are linked together in many ways. But you could have a dashboard like this where you're looking at your backlogs, your closure times, first call resolution rate. Maybe you see a spike or a trend that's not right. You can drill down right from the dashboard into the process mining workspace. And then you can start exploring that process data and get an understanding of what's going on here. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of a harbor tour of the process mining workspace, assuming it comes up here, and there we go. So what you're looking at here, in this case, we've mined 21,000 incidents. They've taken 1,500 unique routes to get to closure, and on average, they're taking 8 days to get there. With every project we create and every process and every data set, we immediately generate 2 visualizations to help you better understand the data that you're looking at. The first is a closure time trend for that data set. The second is a histogram showing us a distribution of those closure times. So we can see here the majority of these incidents close between 0 and 4 days, but I do have a large chunk here that close between 8 and 12 days. Simply to help you understand the data that we're working with, if you have your own dashboards that you want to embed in here to give the person doing the analysis more context around the process, you can do that as well. Now, as I move down the screen, we get to what is my favorite part of the solution. Everybody loves the visualized process maps. They're awesome. I'm going to show you that in a second. But in addition to that, we package up this concept of improvement opportunities. And these improvement opportunities come in 2 flavors, rule-based and automated. And I'll show you examples of each. The first one here is an example of a rule-based one. I've got these incidents that go into the state of awaiting caller info. And the solution flagged 38% or 8127 of these that happened at one point in their life cycle. Then probably the most important number here is there's 42 years worth of time. 42 years worth of time packaged up in these incidents moving in and out of that awaiting caller info state. Even if we could reclaim 1 or 2% of that, that's going to be a win for us from an organizational perspective. And then right from here, I can drill down into those and continue to have a conversation with this process data to further identify how I might approach this, fixing this problem. Example of a rule-based one because we specifically told the solution to go look for this. These rule-based ones are great for those situations where you have a hypothesis about where your inefficiencies might be, but just haven't had a good way to get the data you need to help you prove it out and then validate whether it's something you want to follow up on. These help you get that. The next one is an example of a more automated improvement opportunity or finding. It flagged rework on the in progress state, meaning these 2,000 incidents went into the state of in progress, left it, and eventually came back. In fact, one incident did it 11 times. And then again, most important number here is there's 33 years worth of time packaged up in this rework loop, typically an example of a quality or a training issue that we could work on. The reason I call this an automated one is we have this library of inefficiency detectors. These are great for those situations where you don't know what you don't know about your process. So we have a rework detector looking for things going A, B, C, back to A in the process. We have a ping pong detector looking for things going A, B, very handy for assignment group analysis. We have a slow transition detector. Let's say 85% of your work takes less than 2 hours to go from a new to in progress state, but there's 2% over here that takes longer than 8 days. It'll flag those. Are they all going to be important or valuable to you? No, but they surfaced for you. And then like a dating app, you can swipe left on the ones you like, swipe right on the ones that aren't important to you, and just keep doing. The combination of the two, the rule-based and the automated, super powerful, if you think about it. I always like to compare it to when I was playing hide and seek as a kid. When I was playing hide and seek at home, I had a home field advantage. I knew the 2 or 3 best hiding spots, so when I was way more efficient at finding my friends than they were at finding me. Same is true with most of our customers. Have a pretty good idea where your inefficiencies are, but you haven't had a good way to get the data you need to prioritize which ones are the ones you should be acting on. These start to get you that data. And then on anyone, right, I can drill down right from here to continue that conversation with the data, and it will take me to the visualized process map of just those 8127 that touch the state of awaiting caller info. And I can do a bunch of stuff in here. I'm not going to go through it all, but what you can see here is I'm just looking at the volume and velocity in which the work is moving through the different steps of the process. And then I can start using my breakdowns on the left-hand side of the screen here to further slice and dice this process data by anything that you've structured: category, assignment group, priority. I always like to use channel when I think about a waiting caller, because if I can improve the intake, maybe I don't need to go back and forth to the user as much. And I can see here that the majority of these incidents touching a waiting caller come in via self-service or portal. But check out this email channel. These incidents coming in via email on average are taking a whole week longer than those first 2 channels. So kind of expected, right? Email's a pretty unstructured channel, so we'd expect a little bit more back and forth, but like a whole week, come on, we can do better. So let me narrow it down to just those. And then I can do a number of other things. I can see here, maybe I want to focus on the incidents that go into a waiting caller 2, 3, 4, or 5 times. Because you're in the platform, you have the huge advantage of being able to get down to the detailed records themselves to continue that conversation with the data. Much of the actionable information, the what you do to fix the process issue, lives within the records, lives within the work notes, the unstructured data. So many other process mining solutions out there don't give you this level of detail. We have direct access to the data. Remember that key thing, the data piece? We have that data. And then you can use this to continue the conversation. Or the unstructured data, your short descriptions, your work notes. There's so much gold in that, and we have a whole bunch of AI on the platform that helps us harvest the information that lives in that. So I can see here that there's a large cluster of these incidents coming in via email, going into a waiting caller, and which is just people that want to update their email address in their profile. Like, that's totally something I should have self-service for, a catalog item, a virtual agent conversation. And you know what? Many cases, organizations already have a fix for it. They just haven't done organizational change management or marketing enough to let people know that that solution exists. So maybe that's the situation here. So we've identified an opportunity to improve. What do we do next? Well, I can add a note to have somebody come in here follow up on this, or let's close the loop and create a continual improvement initiative or an automation center request to make sure that this improvement opportunity doesn't get lost in the shuffle. We track it, we prioritize it, we hold people accountable to doing the work. Really, really important piece to close that loop here, and it's built right into this. All right, I know I'm going super fast, but this clock is counting down. So 2 more things I'd like to show you here before we get into my favorite part, which is how easy it is to do, so you can all go home and get started. One is this compare piece. So I can do this side-by-side analysis of different teams, regions, lines of business, whatever it might be. But one of the popular ways that customers use this side-by-side analysis is to do the before and after a process change. So let's say I made a process change on October 31st, right? Well, on one side here, I want to show that. On the other side here, I want to show all the work that closed after that process change. So now I get some visibility into, hey, what was the impact of that process change? And I can see that the process is now running like an hour faster. But more importantly than the high-level summary improvement number is I also now have visibility into is there any adverse effects to the process change. Very often, your high-level numbers might look good, but underneath the covers, stuff is going the wrong direction that's going to kick you in the butt later on. This allows us to see what the impact of the changes is at a very granular level, so we can catch those things that might be adverse effects that might hurt us down the road. Now, last thing that I want to do here is I want to show you my favorite, the finger-pointing report. This is the one where every customer that starts with process mining, we create this project, and within minutes, we start to identify situations that we potentially could improve. So whereas in that last example, we were looking at how work was moving from state to state in the process, in this example, we're looking at how work is moving from team to team in the process and the volume and the velocity between those transitions. Anything that's changing on a record, you can visualize in these maps. So assignment group is a very popular one. Some people like to look at priorities and how they're changing during the process. Right? You can look at anything that's here. And then what we can do is we can start to use this variation analysis to allow us to look at all the different routes that work is taking to get to closure. And check out these 26 here. I have 26 that are going from CX Support Americas to Solana Tech back to CX Support Americas. And on average, it's taking 1 month for them to make that journey. But like, who's holding on to the work the longest in that scenario? So let me narrow it down to these. And now I can see the work comes in, it goes to CX Support Americas. They hang on to it for a day before they transfer it over to Solana Tech, who then hangs on to it for 4 weeks before they get it back to CX Support Americas. I now know who's holding on to the work the longest, and we can start to have those conversations like, hey, can we just train this team up to handle those things so they don't have to transfer it? Can we just bypass that first team and get it directly to the second team, right? And save some of that time, like a day on every one of these. Why does that second team have to transfer it back? I don't know what the answer is, but we now have the data we need to have a conversation in the organization. Process mining is amazing at starting to bring the organization together and generate conversations about improvement because you now have fact-based conversations and the data and the visuals to talk through it together. Really, really powerful. All right, last piece. Now you're all sitting there saying, Dan, this is pretty amazing, but like, how hard is this to do? It's not hard at all. Secret. Shh. So we'll walk through it. It'll take 5 minutes. So we're going to come in here. We're going to create our first project. We're going to call this one Fed Form. We're going to pick our table that we want to mine. Any table that has auditing turned on is going to be available to us in this list. I'm going to pick incident because that's where my best demo data is. And we're going to hit create project. Then there's like 2 things you absolutely have to do, right? First thing we're going to need to do is we need to kind of scope the data down a little bit. Like, hey, what questions are we trying to answer and what data do we need to answer those? So we'll come here to our filter conditions and we'll just start adding filter conditions, just like you're building a report. One thing I like to do though is always look at closed work. If we're trying to improve a process, we should look at work that's completed the process. Could you look at open work? Yes, but now you're comparing apples to oranges. So we'll just add that active as false there. Then maybe we only want to look at a certain category, a certain time period, human-generated incidents versus machine-generated ones, certain category of cases, whatever it might be. You just keep adding different filters. Maybe it's the last month, last quarter. People often ask, well, how much data can you mine? You can mine as much as you want. I don't care. But you know what? I really hope that your process has changed over the last 7 years, so it doesn't really make sense to look at what was happening 7 years ago. We want to improve the process that's running today. Let's just look at the last month or the last quarter typically when we start looking at this. I don't have a use case here, so we'll hit save. Then what do we do next? Well, you need to add at least one what is known as an activity. What is the thing that's changing about those records over time that we can use to find bottlenecks? Very often we start with state, but as you saw, assignment group is good. Anything that's changing on the record, you can include many of these in a single map if you want. I like to keep them separate at first. And then, of course, you're going to want to slice and dice that map by those breakdowns. Remember I looked at the contact type or the intake channel? Let's just add category. Maybe we'll add assignment group here. I'll save that. And then the last thing we're going to do, remember those amazing improvement opportunities, the rule-based and the automated? Well, we give you some of those as part of content packs, but you wind up creating your own as well and adding your own. But if you wanted to, you just add them from the library that we have. Great. I'll get a little message saying, hey, some of these are good, some of these are bad for this project based on the way you configure the beginning. If I wanted to add any of my own, like the rework, the ping pong, actually, let's just do it so you can see how easy this is. Bless you. We'll add a rework detector, so we'll just come in here and say rework. Great. If I can type it. Then what I got here, well, here's all my different types of detectors, rework, ping pong, extra step. What field do we want to look for rework on? The state field. What category? Typically it's quality if it's a rework issue. And then if you want to link it to any KPIs you have, so when you start adding these KPIs to the dashboard, you can surface these process mining insights right there on the dashboard, because not everyone's going to live in this workspace. You want to start surfacing these powerful insights across the organization to other stakeholders. We can do that. And now we're done. We hit the review and mine button. And it's going to give us this nice little readout of everything we just configured, and we say mine project. That's it. What this does now, it goes out, harvests all the relevant audit log data that based on the filter criteria we put in, uses the machine learning infrastructure to do all the heavy duty number crunching so there's no impact on the performance of the instance, spits the finished model back in. This is the piece that blows people's minds, right? Tremendous visibility, minutes to create these projects. Your typical process mining solutions outside of the platform it's a weeks to months type of exercise to do what we just did here. Literally, you turn on the plugin in your instance and away you go. And here's another little tidbit for you. For those of you that have upgraded to Xanadu, there's now a process mining evaluation project available. So if you upgrade to Xanadu, you go to your instance. In your workspaces at the top, you're going to see process mining workspace. There's going to be something called evaluation project. It will allow you to mine 3,600 incidents that have closed in the last 7 days, just so you can get a little taste of process mining with your own data. All right, so that's available to you when you get up to Xanadu. But now, for those of you that know how to do this, and you saw how easy it was, after happy hour, maybe wait till tomorrow, but you can go home, try this out on your own, take a peek, really easy to do. There we go. Come on, almost there, perfect. And we're done. That's it. Pretty cool, right? I have like the best job at ServiceNow. I really do. It's like, don't tell anybody, but every now and then I feel like I'm overpaid. But don't tell anybody I said that. We're not recording, are we? Perfect. All right, let's just go. Last thing. And then we'll get to your questions. So I know you're amazed about what you saw. Now you want to learn a little bit more. Lots of resources out there. There is a Now Learning course out there, Process Mining Essentials. It allows you to get hands-on, so there's a lab component of it, so you can do it exactly what we just did there if you spin up that course. We use process mining at ServiceNow. We've mined hundreds of processes at this point and found tons of things. There's a nice white paper out there that details kind of how we've approached process mining from an organizational perspective and the value that it's provide. There's a community forum, like everything else, specifically focused on process mining. Our team checks it every morning as we drink our coffee, so if you got questions, you can always post there. One of us will get back to you pretty quick. But there's tons of resources on that page for you. One of those things you'll find there is something called the Process Mining Academy. Once a month, we pick a topic and we do a deep dive into a different area of process mining. There's about 34 recorded sessions out there now of different topics like process mining for risk management, process mining for customer service, how to build those multi-dimensional maps you saw. There's even a whole session on that histogram I showed you to look at the whole session on that. I don't know why you'd watch it, but I talked about it for 45 minutes, so it's not all that exciting, but it's out there. Then we also have something called the use case series. So, like, it doesn't look like I have a Peloton, but I do. Like, I'm the reason their stock price went way down because I started wearing their shirts. But you know when you go do a new exercise, like this little 3-minute video that shows you how to do the exercise? We've recognized that process mining is a new muscle for a lot of our customers. So what we've done is we've created these little 3 to 5 minute videos for all the most common use cases, like how to use process mining to do that multi-hop analysis, how to use process mining to do SLA breach analysis, how to use process mining to find automation opportunities. Super cool technique, right? What you can do is you can look for, show me all the work that took longer than 2 minutes and less than 15 minutes to go from an in progress to a closed state or resolved state. Because if it's less than 2 minutes, you've probably already automated it. But if it's longer than 2 minutes and less than 15, a human's not doing a lot of thinking or problem solving around it. They're just probably surfacing a knowledge article or passing something along, right? Tons of potential self-service opportunities in that subset. So this use case series kind of give you some inspirational ideas of how you could use process mining, also shows you how to do it. And then lastly, once a month we host an office hours. So come, show up, open forum, ask your questions. We'll tell some jokes, we'll get your answers. But all those things are out there for you on the community site. I always like to, we started with the quote, I'll end with the quote, to improve is to change, to be perfect is to change often. Right? One of the things that I love about the way that we've done process mining on the platform is we've made it easy. Minutes, not months. So you can make this part of your regular routine, continually looking at how your process is performing, where are there opportunities to improve. It allows you to continually get better over time in a much more streamlined fashion than the traditional approaches to doing something like this. All right, questions? Anybody got any questions?
Is this kind of in the spirit of your first one?
Yeah.
Do the best you can and do it better.
Yes.
Do you know of organizations that kind of institutionalize this as part of the post-process automation delivery?
So the question I'll repeat because we are recording this. So do people institutionalize this, build a program around it, use it as part of like, hey, we've implemented something and now we want to continually look at it? Absolutely. That is like one of the most important things to do is like you rolled this thing out, let's understand if it's working or not. And one thing a comment I'll make about it, our good friend Chris that was on the main stage said he had a great quote. He said at one point, he's like, You know what process mining allows us to do? It allows us to innovate faster, because I'm not worried about getting the process 100% right the first time, because I know that we're going to have visibility into it and where it's going off the rails on day one. Right? This is one of those things, you can run this on one record. So as you start to roll out new processes, roll this out in parallel. Why wait 6 months to know you have a problem when you could have identified it 2 weeks in that 72% of the work is going to the wrong team? Right? So you can start with this. You don't need to have a huge library of data to do this. You can start right away. And then you build a program around it. It becomes part of your daily stand-ups. You're using this visualization, and you're digging into the improvement opportunities on a regular basis. Good?
Yeah.
Perfect. Somebody in the back had a question. I did? Look at that. How amazing am I? Go ahead. Ladies first.
You don't have KPIs or SLAs.
Yep.
I mean, is that
This is going to help you set those up. I can tell you that. So yes, I'm sorry. I'm probably in the shadows now. Hold on. This is blinding. I'll come back here. So the question is, if I don't have KPIs or SLAs, can I still use process mining? The answer is 100% yes. 100% yes. And in some cases, I have customers, one customer, they rolled out HR. And they had just a standard SLA for all different types of HR cases, 5 days. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Right? And they said, no, but now they're going to use process mining to identify what the recommended time would be for those SLAs moving forward. So you're going to get visibility into your process reality. You don't need to have these things, but as you mature and you add these things, there's some benefits that come along with it, like I mentioned with the KPIs. If you link those improvement opportunities to, let's say, an MTTR KPI, and then you add that KPI to a dashboard, there's a panel on the right-hand side called Insights that you can turn on, and it will start to surface like those rework, the ping pong, right there in that dashboard. Because not everyone's going to live in that process mining workspace, but you want to surface the insights to the other stakeholders to kind of drive the conversation around, we should go dig into this data a little bit more. So there's benefits to it, but not necessary. Somebody else, yeah.
Can I answer that question? So
Again, this is like,
HRSD and
yeah, so any workflow is in play inside and outside of the platform, right? The key component is the audit log data, but by default, that's turned on for most processes. I've had one situation in my entire time doing this, over 4 years now, where a customer had built a custom legal matters app, and they had not remembered to turn, or they just didn't turn auditing on for the table that they built. So they went in and turned it on, and then we turned it. But yeah, should be there. That's the key piece, but any workflow is in play, and then you also have that ability to ingest that external process data from outside, and you can even link internal and external together for those processes that touch most. 2 different things or multiple things. I got to get this side of the room. The question is, does this cost money? The answer is yes. It does cost money, but I would just check with your account team to see what you're entitled to, because it is bundled with some stuff. Sometimes it's not, in some other cases it's not. So I would just check with your account team. And then regardless of whether you're entitled to it or not, that evaluation project that I mentioned, as you upgrade to Xanadu, you'll be able to try it out with your own incident data if you want to. And then for those of you that are saying, wait, Dan, you keep talking about incidents. I'm doing HR, I'm doing customer service. In Yokohama, safe harbor. We are adding evaluation projects for HR case as well as customer service case. So when you upgrade to Yokohama, you'll have 3 different evaluation projects to choose from.
What are common issues with implementation or customization that implementers make on all the products you just mentioned that interfere with what can be mined?
It's a good question. So the question is, hey, what could a customer do to screw this up and not be able to allow them to do process mining? The answer is not much, really. One would be to turn auditing off because we need that data. But if you've got custom fields you've created or done any of those types of things, we're just reading the tables and the fields in the table. So any customizations you've made, they're going to be available to us. Quite frankly, my favorite use cases are when we're mining customers' custom applications that they've built. Right? Incidents are incidents. After a while, like, okay, seen this before. But custom applications are a lot of fun to dig into and look at and find improvements. So the only thing that I've run into is kind of if somebody's turned the auditing off for some reason. But other than that, I've not run into anything with archiving. We can get at that archive data. The question comes back to, do we really need to go back? And I know there's some large customers who have to archive in like the first month. So there is the ability to mine archive data as well as that external data. So yes.
I'm kind of curious about like the chaos aspect of this. Like, do you guys test if you tweak, minor selections? Does it change the outcomes quite a bit, or is it pretty consistent with itself? It's very complex, right? I can imagine like one starting condition changes your outputs.
the analysis. So the question is like, hey, can you do something that really shifts the analysis one way or the other? I've not seen that. Like, it really comes down to what questions are you trying to answer, right? There's two approaches to process mining. One is, I don't know what I want to do. I'm just going to turn it on and hope that it shows me some stuff. The other is, hey, we have specific things that we want to get answered, and let's create a project, like you saw me do, that focuses on a specific set of data. When you get to those specific type of use cases, there's things you can do to like say, hey, you know what? We've got a 7-day closure period. We don't want to include that step in the process in our average durations. So you can say, just stop it resolved, stop the timer there type of thing. So there's ways that you can tweak it. And if you stop at that resolve thing and there's 7-day closure, it's going to shift your resolution times that you're seeing in the map by 7 days. But I've not seen, other than that, like you're in control. Like there's nothing that's going to completely shift it. The thing that happens a lot, and this is why I love the ServiceNow platform and that ability to get to the records, is people see numbers and they're like, well, that can't be true, right? Like there's no way we've got 42 years worth of time just in that one step of the process. And the reality is, yes, you do. I'm not making anything up. The tool's just looking at the times. But if you drill down to the records or use that histogram, what you find is there might be a few that are skewing the averages significantly, right? Like you have something that was open for 99 years or something like that. But we can always get down to the detailed records. So like when people question the numbers, it's like, well, let's just go look. And we drill down and the data's right there at our fingertips to figure out why we're seeing numbers we didn't expect.
How does this work with universal requests or demands that have a connected execution record?
Yep.
Universal requests that have multiple?
So the question is, how does this work with universal request or linked processes that got subtasks? You might not got here a little bit late. So we have this concept of multi-dimensional maps. So you can link together different tables to see that end-to-end visibility. Universal request is a good one to see, hey, which ones are being routed to HR, which ones are being routed to incident, and kind of following the whole path. Another one, like you mentioned, demand. People want to see the entire life cycle from idea to demand to project to those tasks. So you can link those things together. That's a very popular multi-dimensional map, as well as that requested item where I've got the item, the SE tasks, so the fulfillment tasks, and then the approval steps. You put those on the map and you can see a lot of opportunities to improve. So definitely doable. It just depends on the use case. My thing went to 0. I have no idea when it went to 0. So I apologize for those of you that were really thirsty. But I'm going to be around if you want to ask follow-up questions. Appreciate your time here today. I hope this was your favorite session of the day. It was. Perfect. Go tell everyone that process mining is your favorite. And then, I'm sure I'll see you around at cocktail hour. Just so you know, my answers are a little bit better earlier in the cocktail hour than they are later in the cocktail hour. Thanks, everyone.